Recording in progress.
Mr. Mayor, we live.
Great, thank you for that. So today is August 3rd, 2022, and the time is 5:15 p.m. And I'm calling to order the Baldwin Park City Council special meeting. City Clerk, can I get a roll call, please?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. Councilmember Alejandra Avila. Here. Councilmember Monica Garcia. Councilmember Monica Garcia. Councilmember Paul Hernandez. Councilmember Paul Hernandez. Mayor Pro Tem Daniel Damian.
Here.
Mayor Manuel Estrada.
Here. And I believe Councilmember Hernandez will not make it to our special meeting. So we'll just go ahead and note that, City Clerk. And we are going to go ahead and open public communication. Chief Deputy or City Clerk, go ahead and let me know if anybody filled out a speaker card.
We had no written requests for public communication.
Great. At this moment, if anybody else is looking to speak that didn't fill out a speaker card, now is your time. Seeing that nobody is looking to speak, I'm going to go ahead and close public communication. And we will go ahead. Oh. Okay. 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 So moving forward, we're going into our open session for the Family Service Center.
Mayor, if I may interject really quick.
Yes, Mayor Pro Tem.
Is there a way that I would make a suggestion that we start with the Habitat Project first presentation and then followed by the Family Service Center so we can get a better idea since they're proposing at one of the site locations?
Yeah, that's completely fine.
Thank you.
All right, so we're going to go ahead and go with the Habitat for Humanity presentation first.
Mr. Mayor, Council, staff, thank you so much for having us. You know we love coming here because it's always something fun to talk about. So tonight we want to talk about the Family Service Center and how this could fit into the bigger picture of the revitalization of that downtown area. Next. So briefly, we just want to cover a handful of points. This should take us about 15 minutes or so, and I'm sure you might have a question or two at the end. So we can either ask them as you see them or wait to the end, however you guys want to do it. Next. So real quick, I just wanted to just kind of point out where the various projects are before we start jumping to the future projects we want to do. Let's take a look at what we've already done to date. Today, we've already completed 2 houses for home ownership. 5 home repairs have been completed. And currently, we have about $3.6 million that we're going to be doing more home ownership and repair programs over the next 2 years or so. This is another item you'll be addressing a little bit later tonight. But this is going to equate to approximately another 40 housing units of families being served. Also, as a reminder, we have a 12-unit new construction project that's hopefully going to get started around January or so on Torch. And we've signed a letter of agreement with the church to build another 15 units on Stewart. So we are full in. Next. So this is the area that we had initially spoke about. The block in red on the right is the Pablo parking lot, or Lauren's project or Lauren's property, bordered by Morgan Street as well. We originally spoke about this project back in February. And our thought was to develop that particular property with a restore, our corporate headquarters, have perhaps 3 or 4 floors, restaurant perhaps. There was a number of different ideas that was being thrown out on what we can do with that particular site. And of course, it all started with the Family Services as a possible spot to relocate it. Next. But since that point in time, we've been looking around and having more conversations to try to figure out how to make that parcel more cohesive with your city plan. So we started looking at the existing family services parcel. Now, I think it's important to say that no matter how these projects get done, we're going to run into and have to work with the Surplus Land Act in some form or fashion. Part of the Surplus Land Act is to work with affordable housing. So in this particular area, we're looking at approximately 20 units of housing. According to the rules, we'd have to have at least 25% as affordable, which would be 5. So we could also take those remaining 15, if you so desired, and put them at market rate. Now, one of our ideas was on this particular area is to have those 5 units a little bit different. And what we like to look at as young professional units or new graduates, smaller units for 1 or 2 person families, so we can get the young professionals who are perhaps just out of college or newly married an opportunity to live in the city, and so they don't have to move out. Our goal is to subsidize those 5 units with some of the market rates, and hopefully we can have a mortgage of under $200,000. To me, it's just critically important that we try to figure out how to create some starter homes again in this area. And this is the perfect spot. Downtown area, younger people, it's, in my mind, the best way to go. And as you can tell by this picture, and you're looking at those buildings around it, those are all existing housing units, both ownership and rentals. And so by transitioning the housing into this area versus that main Pablo parking lot, it seems to fit much better with the overall flow of the city. This is all residential, and it tucks in really nice. Next, please. Now, this was our original rendering of the Pablo parking lot. When we first spoke, the thought was to have a restore, which would also include our headquarters and a family service center, and then another portion or another building which would have all of the housing. But as we just discussed, it seems to make more sense to have the housing in a different area and to keep this as much more of a core area for commerce. So our thought was just to keep this in mind. It's the same general look. As you can tell, even though one of our restores is going to be here, we're looking for an upscale cornerstone for the downtown area. We're looking for this to be a destination. Now, this area here, instead of being housing in our corporate headquarters, is really going to be broken into 3 phases. Next, please. So the first part of this is we're looking to relocate our corporate headquarters into this building. Inside of that corporate headquarters, of course, we're going to have the family service center as well, which will make it much more centralized and easy to see for the residents of the city. One of the advantages, I think, of us having here or relocating to this area is Habitat for Humanity is absolutely a worldwide brand. It'll bring a lot of recognition, so every time we're looking at things, Baldwin Parks can be brought up in the most positive light possible. We have a lot of community support, and we provide community support, not just in our traditional housing and rehabs and critical home repairs, but for other things such as your tiny home projects. Even though that's not one of our projects, we're partnering with the Housing Trust. The first time around, we helped to construct them. We're already working with Brielle this time around to do all the construction and to house them or to furnish them, to get them to go top to bottom. The third part is our organization is fairly large. At this point in time, we have approximately 40 employees, which is not a small group. I have 2 of my board members here. I should have introduced them to start with. Eric and Tyler. This is a pretty important topic for us, and they just want to make sure that they can voice their support on how much we want to be a bigger part of the city and what you guys are trying to accomplish. I think that the number of jobs that we have will increase over time. So this is something we're looking to do. The stability factor is, I think we've all heard and have concerns about the economy and where it's going to go, whether it's at a tipping point, whether we're going to go into a recession or not, how it affects local businesses. As we've seen through COVID, it doesn't take a lot to close some businesses down. The one thing I can tell you is, recession or not, we're going to be here. We will provide that stability in that downtown area to be that anchor. In addition to those items, we also bring revenue. According to some economic studies, based on our staff and our payroll, it's going to translate to about $168,000 to $170,000 of additional spending inside of the Baldwin Park area just from our employees. Next, please. The second part of that complex will be our restore, which would be on the ground floor. And most people will know our restore as a store that is selling gently used goods the second time around. But it's important to know that we're more than that. Through our national partners like Crate and Barrel, Williams-Sonoma, Pottery Barn, HD Supply, they provide us with a good number of brand new items that are either discontinued or for some reason that they just want to liquidate them. We sell these at a very deep discount, along with a number of other brand new items. The middle item there are the cabinets that you see, and it's not that we just get donated items. We also have contracts with manufacturers that have specific deals with us to sell us at a very deep discount. So those are brand new cabinets that are custom made, and they sell far cheaper than you're ever going to be able to buy at a Home Depot or a Lowe's or anything of that nature. So in addition to our gently used goods, we have a great number of brand new items as well. So why don't we just get into the numbers? Next slide, please. So, for example, and to me this is another key component of being in this downtown area. The store, we have a store currently in Duarte that would be relocating here. And at this point in time, our store in Duarte should be having net sales, retail sales of about $1.5 million. That's a pretty significant amount of sales tax to be generated from one store. We also have about 41,000 customers that visited, 171 volunteers, which is a lot of foot traffic. We've talked in the past about how do we drive people to the downtown area that aren't from this area. This is definitely one of the ways to do it. The last point of the 53 Baldwin Park residents, we've had pickups in the Baldwin Park for the last 5 years, a substantial number. And to me, this is important because it just goes to show that we are a known entity in this store. People are traveling to Duarte on a regular basis from here, and those tax dollars are leaving the city, which is this bottom point. And this is from the Better Business Bureau that says for every $100 spent on a local business, $68 stays within your local economy. So clearly, we want to try to capture as much as we can and keep it here. Next, please. Now, the third part, or that second building in our big park slide is we were talking about the possibility of putting in a food court because this also meets, I think, a lot of the goals that you guys are looking at trying to reach. Now, this is a food court that was built and developed in Bellflower. Now, this is not something that we personally would do. We would probably partner with a developer to do this. This is not our wheelhouse. But this is to give you an idea of the things that are being done and that are out there. So in this particular one, it takes about 15,000 square feet, which fits perfectly with the footprint that we're looking at for our restore and our corporate headquarters. In this particular case, the numbers are fantastic. 500 to 600 people on the weekends. 2/3 of the people are coming from outside of the city. So this is driving, again, a destination, making downtown a destination. As you can see, we were talking about in a number of ways, how do we make this something that's going to be a gathering spot, a great location. It's right across the street from the park. It's right in the middle of what we're trying to do. There's a number of ways we can do it. They're almost all open air of some sort. You can make it a nighttime activity. You can make it a daytime activity. There's restaurants, coffee bars, ice cream, whatever you want to do, whatever your goal is, we can custom that type of area. But this is to show how we can drive more business in here. And honestly, to me, having a food court or something like this right next to our restore, they're going to feed on each other, so to speak. Our restores have high turnover of products, so our customers come in on a regular basis. If they're coming in on a regular basis and you have this sitting next to it, I'm sure there's going to be some spillover. If you're coming in and visiting and having lunch here, and we have all of these fantastic deals right next door, I'm sure that's going to be some spillover. So to me, we think that these are very complementary ideas. Next slide, please. So we get down to why we think that we are the perfect partner for you guys. We work in the community. We clearly are not a group who's coming in trying to make the fast buck and then bailing out on you guys. You can tell by all the projects we've already done and already have planned, we want to be here forever. This is the perfect spot for our corporate headquarters for all the reasons we had previously mentioned. One of the great things about if we have the ability to help drive this program is the speed at which we can put things together. As you know, we're pretty proficient at moving forward. We believe that our plan that I just kind of outlined to you is going to generate a significant amount of tax revenue. And maybe just as important, the plan that I've outlined, I think, is cohesive to what you're trying to do from top to bottom, that it's going to tie together all the different projects that you have in the park. I think it gives the Family Service Center that visibility right in the middle, along with other services. I think you're creating a destination with the food court, and I think it ties right into the new City Hall wing, perhaps, to the Socolo, and it just makes it one nice stream from top to bottom in which it flows all the way down. So that is our overall vision. Hopefully you will share it with us. Next slide. Thank you. You guys have any questions, or is there anything I could clarify?
I have some questions.
Fire away.
Yes, go ahead.
I love the food court that you're offering there because that has been our vision. So my questions, I have two questions. First, and maybe that's Ron, what is the square footage of the old Family Service Center, and what are you proposing for the new Family Service Center?
Ron, maybe you could tell me the exact square footage. I don't have the footage. I had to eyeball it, to be honest with you.
For the existing one?
What is the existing, and what are you proposing? What size are you proposing there? Because the idea is to get a bigger Family Service Center.
Right.
Yes. Yeah, so the current one is 5,000 plus or minus, 5,000 square feet, and that's actually in our presentation. And so I don't know what you're proposing.
I was proposing that in our facility, the first time we spoke, the idea was to have it between 8,000 and 10,000, which would fit on our administrative floor, on our corporate floor. So it would fit nicely.
Okay. And then what do you plan on doing for parking, being that you're proposing the units where the old family service center is?
Right.
You're proposing the store, you're proposing family service center and dining area. So where will we all be parking?
For the people who are driving, right, because we're all going to walk and ride bikes.
Well, I don't know
for
about
those who
that.
don't, I'm just kidding you. You know, there was a talk earlier, and perhaps we can go back to the slideshow. It's the housing slide, which is the 5th slide. If we can go back to that one for a second. There we go, right there. So, the box on the right is the existing Pablo parking lot where we're proposing to put the development. The box on the top is currently where the senior housing is. And so there had been discussion the first time around of relocating those. I'm not sure how many. There was less than 10, I think, residents, and they were Section 8 housing to other houses, other city-owned properties, or possibly, if we had to, put them into the new complex. If, again, something we can talk about, and then take that particular area and turn that into parking. The reason I didn't include this specifically in the proposal I wanted to do was we think that it's going to be best for that particular area to be a city parking lot. I can tell you, because I did the measurements, I mean, there's enough spot for about 100 spots easy on 2 stories. It's about 40 or 300 to 400 square foot a parking spot. So depending on how high you wanted to make it, you have more parking than you would ever need.
So that's assuming that we relocate these 10 tenants.
Yes, my understanding in our first conversation was that was part of the discussion that the elderly homes were in disrepair, and either they're going to need to be repaired or relocated.
But let's say we didn't do that, so there is no additional parking planned for this area? Because let's say we were to do that, that would take time also.
That's, well, I
Proposed
don't know how
parking
much
at
time
this
it would
time?
take, but I mean, it will absolutely take time. It's another step, absolutely, that have to come into play. I would rethink how we do this, honestly. I was going back to our first conversation. I guess my suggestion would be to, again, juggle where the housing is and use the existing family service center as parking. It gets farther away from the core of where we want people funneling in and out, but that is a possibility.
Okay, those were all my questions. Thank you.
Sure.
I have a couple of questions, if I may, Mayor.
Yes, go ahead.
Hi, Brian. How are you?
Hey, Danny, how you doing?
Good, thank you, sir. So a couple of things. With the proposal that you have right now on the actual Lawrence parking lot behind those businesses there, the proposal is for you to build 2 buildings. One is a 3-story facility, which will have your restore, and then 2 office stories, right? The second and the third floor.
We're thinking it might be 2. I mean, we can adjust this, but I think if the new outline 2 stories would serve the purpose, if we needed to do more, I'd love to talk to you about it.
So, okay, but your proposal for you building, basically, I'm trying to wrap my head around how this deal would be structured. So in a sense, we as a city would basically sell you this plot of land. You would build and develop the unit with the restore and the offices as your headquarters.
Right.
Then the second unit would be residential. Now, the old housing facility that serves approximately, if I'm not mistaken, 12 residents, that would be up to the city to figure out if they want to convert that into a parking lot, because this is not part of what you're developing and what you're proposing, correct?
Correct.
Okay.
That was my thought to start with. Yes.
Okay. Now, and I know that we met and I had a couple of concerns, and look, your design looks great. I love the food court idea. I think that's something that we should kind of lean towards for that area. However, my biggest concern is the parking, and I brought this up to you when we met, was
Right.
On Lawrence Street, we added new parking stripes there because we were short in parking. And so with this proposal, we're eliminating those parking spaces on Lawrence. Then on top of that, we're eliminating the entire parking lot that we have there. So we're proposing, I mean, right now, parking is an issue there. If we're proposing, I don't know if you've changed the residential units, but at one point in time, we spoke about approximately 45 units. Those are 45 residents with, let's just say 45 vehicles to be conservative. Then we've got the restore. So you've got staff plus people purchasing in your store. Then you've got the other businesses that you have there. So in a sense, we're already short on parking, but we're adding more people to want to park there. So that was one of my biggest concerns, because your development in a sense does not address the parking situation that we have there. I mean, look, for me, the pros are the speed of development. That's great. I love to hear that we can develop this fast. Of course, generation of tax revenue. That's music to my ears. We need the revenue. And the food court. Those are all really great ideas. But one of the crucial things here is parking, because it makes no sense for us to have these great things there if people are not going to have the ability to park.
Okay. Yeah, that's something we can look at. We took the square footage from the parking lot and built it out to what the maximum was if parking is the issue. Perhaps we can scale back and get to the number of parking spots that you want and need. Do you have an idea what you're looking for on as far as the number of spots go?
I don't a number, but I'm going to tell you it's a lot, only because just from the concerts at the park that we just had last week, people were parking way over at the Firestone Grocery Outlet parking lot to get to the park. When we have these big events like the Downtown Street Market on Main, there's nowhere to park. And these are just some of the events that we have. But let's not forget that we want to redevelop our downtown. And what we want to do is we want to encourage people to be able to park and walk up and down Main once we revitalize it and bring in different types of businesses there. I know we have the Metrolink station parking lot that's pretty much empty, but realistically speaking, our residents will not cross that Ramona intersection to walk from the Metrolink station down towards this area over here where we're proposing. It would be a great parking for the Zocalo because it's across the street. But when it comes to actually crossing that Ramona intersection, our residents won't. They would prefer to come and park way over where I'm at towards the end of downtown on Ramona than to cross the Ramona intersection. So we would definitely, all I can say is a lot of parking. But I mean, yeah, so those are my concerns. I don't know if anyone else wants to speak on this behalf.
I mean, there's only 3 of us here, so I guess I'll
No, I believe Councilmember Garcia is on as well.
Oh, okay, great. So, to me, it's a pretty big opportunity. We've always been told that, developers aren't interested in Baldwin Park, let alone this site. So, having Habitat and them willing to work with us is a pretty big deal, right? We've seen, I think, Mayor Pro Tem, you and I met with, the old developer, and it seemed like they weren't really willing to change some of their plans to help us meet the vision of what we wanted. So to me, it is actually a pretty big deal, right? Because normally developers won't do something that's not profitable for them. Developers are going to build, they're going to take off, they're going to go to wherever their headquarters are, they're going to let that place run. So having a developer that's actually going to not only maintain it, but be here is a pretty big deal. I think that there's a lot of pros to this, and it's all about how fast we develop, and we've seen the community get incredibly excited about development in the downtown. Every time a restaurant opens, I mean, La Cosecha just opened up and everybody gets excited, right? Because everybody's been wanting downtown development. I think we all felt strongly that the old proposed project in that area would have been a disservice to the community. And I think that this project meets what we all want. I think for starters, puts us, depending on how many units we build, and I know that Habitat is open to the amount of it, I think it puts us on a pretty big goal, you know. And in 1 year, we funded a potential 50 affordable home ownership opportunities. We have the opportunity to get to 100 affordable home ownership opportunities in record time. Normally, cities put out an affordable home ownership opportunity once or twice, you know, every couple of years. So, you know, meeting that goal, I think, is something big. You know, we're talking about revenues. We're talking about a potential tax increase. We're talking about needing those dollars. So I think it's also important that we show the community that we're doing our part to collect revenue. You know, we're talking about a potential, you know, there's this talk about a potential recession looming, which is not far from it, right? 14 years ago in 2008, we had a recession. And I think it's important that we learn from it and that we understand how important it is to diversify our revenue sources. We know that the downtown is a majority of service-based businesses, so we don't collect any revenue off that. You know, we're not going to go in there and kick these businesses out either. So it's important that we use the small amounts of opportunities that we have to really create the opportunities that we need. If you know, with a food court and a furniture store, I mean, we could easily have 10 to 12 new revenue sources, which would be 10 to 12 new revenue sources that are helping us diversify where we're getting our tax dollars from. If we were to pass a tax and a recession were to hit, not only would we, you know, it could be detrimental to the city because we've increased our reliance on a small group of people to fund the city. So that could be, you know, it's something to keep in mind. Also, depending on whether, depending on whether we want to build the Family Service Center in partnership with Habitat or we want to build it somewhere else, there is you know, there's revenue that comes in from, you know, a transaction on this lot. So we could take that money easily and automatically put it towards the construction of a new Family Service Center elsewhere, which I think is important. You know, we asked Congress for $5 million for a Family Service Center. They allocated for $750,000. That's not even 20% of what we asked for. So it's important that we put our dollars in. We also talked about a potential portion of our ARPA dollars going towards a new Family Service Center. It could very well be close to halfway funded for a new Family Service Center based on the costs that we've seen for other proposed construction. So that's also important. I know that we talk about parking a lot, but when we look at our aerial map, I think one of the issues that we had was, you know, we already have a big portion of our downtown being parking lots. And although it's important that we make sure that these cars are going to be somewhere, we also want to encourage people to walk. And, you know, for a very, very, very long time, we've talked about a walkable city, you know, and we have to kind of push people to do it. You know, for some reason, people don't want to walk here. I don't know why, but, you know, residents go to the Santee Alleys in LA, they will walk miles. They go to downtown Monrovia, they don't mind walking the whole strip, parking in one spot. Anywhere you name it, Glendora, downtown LA, we park somewhere and we walk everywhere. So there's no reason why we can't be doing that here. I did just quickly pinpoint on Google Earth, and the parking lots are less than 1,000 feet from that desired location. You know, I think that there's a lot of opportunity to rejuvenate that area, and it's very necessary. I mean, that parking lot is very dated, you know, and it has become a nuisance lately, especially with the fire that happened at the building next door. So it's incredibly important that we develop it and make sure that we remove these areas that are causing blight or problems to the community or to the city, because we know that it's going to reduce that strain on our staff. I mean, this is fast development. You know, we're building a downtown, I think, faster than anyone could have imagined it possible. We're building a Zocalo. We're looking at how we make the downtown more vivid. So we could be working simultaneously, and we can have a new looking downtown in record time. We could be working parallel with Habitat, which I think is important. Also, the ability of Habitat's working with us, which I think is really important. You know, I think I mentioned that earlier. Developers are not going to do something that's not profitable for them. You know, and we're not going to. You know, I think this is a once in a lifetime opportunity to bring in a headquarters. That's a pretty big deal. Having a headquarters in the community, I think it opens up room for philanthropy. I think it's something that we've always talked about, especially now that we've talked about, you know, how we fund services, how we get partnerships going. Bringing people into Baldwin Park is incredibly vital. So now we have a nonprofit headquartered in our downtown, and I think that's important. It brings in jobs, it brings in foot traffic, it brings in people to check out Baldwin Park, people that otherwise wouldn't stop through here. So, overall, it brings stability. I mentioned earlier that people get excited when they see a restaurant or they see something coming to the downtown, because I think it's something that we've longed for a very long time. This would bring life to the downtown, and it brings stability in the sense that, this is going to be somebody's corporate headquarters, so they're going to be here all the time. There's going to be staff all the way to the top of the administrative pyramid, and there's going to be more people, more foot traffic. We look at some of the businesses that have come into the downtown. Unfortunately, they don't last as long as we'd like them to. We just saw Sage. They've transitioned owners. There's a new restaurant there. You look at Menchie's. I think Menchie's only lasted a couple of years. Fallas Paredes is closing. So it's also very important that we keep in mind what's happening around the area, because we need to find ways to make up for that revenue. And for the parking, I think parking is important, but as I mentioned, it shouldn't be our top concern right away. Development takes time, and I think that there is a perfect opportunity here, depending on how we've talked about building up McNeil Manor, which I think is important. I think that we've talked about the idea of expanding McNeil Manor and building up, and we've seen the need for that as well. Through our tiny homes alone, we've seen how many seniors are in need of housing. So that adds to that conversation. Having seniors living in front of the senior center, I think is a pretty big deal. But over that, if we were to, we were able to build a parking structure that was big enough to not only add parking but make up for the loss of parking, we could be expanding not just that parking lot. We could be expanding Morgan Park. Sometimes we pass by Morgan Park and imagining that parking is no longer the frontage there. I mean, that's a bigger conversation, but it would be a pretty big deal to make it so that there's nothing but park in the frontage. So we do have to, like I said, get creative with how we do things and think about the long term. So especially with development, we're not going to be able to lock in everything right away. So those are just some of my points.
I have one more question before I forget, Brian. You did mention something about the building maybe possibly becoming our family service center. Just for clarification, that would be something that us as a city would have to lease from you if we were to decide to use your facility as the family service center, correct?
That's one way to do it. We're open to a lot of conversations. At this point in time, honestly, we just want to find out what the goal is and how we can best help your city.
Okay.
We view ourselves as a partner. We think that we have a lot to bring. One of the ideas was, if I'm not mistaken, probably before we knew that you had put out a grant request for the construction of a new center. We were thinking that this would just be part of the transaction. I mean, again, our thought was we want to figure out how do we get the family service center to be in the center of the downtown so there's accessibility for the people who need it. If I know we've talked about going from 5,000 to perhaps all the way up to 10,000 square feet. I'm not positive what the big game plan is, but this is something, we're at the first level of determining the best structure, right? So I just would like to make sure that we're on the same page with you and how we would work together. So, to me, these questions about parking and what we're going to do with the family center, this is awesome. Because this is what we need to get to the next level to make a determination whether this works for you. If parking is the only issue, we didn't spend a lot of time thinking about it, but there is a lot of area that might be better utilized and consolidated into areas that could turn into parking. We made a lot of assumptions when we drew the map. It was based on a single conversation. Do we include the street on the side or not? And, there's just a lot of, hey, give us a rendering of what you think it could look like. So this is what we think it could look like. I didn't, by any stretch of my imagination, think you were going to say, start tomorrow. I mean, I'm expecting a dialogue. I need to better understand your concerns, and so we can put together the best plan possible that meets everybody's goals.
Thank you for that, Brian.
Sure.
I think it would be a good idea, Mayor, if maybe we were to uh,
Oh, I'm sorry. Dr.
go with the Family Service Center presentation, and then this way we see what our options are, and then have that broader discussion as to, okay, what are we going to do in this in this plot of land here? Which way, which direction we're going to go, and if that opens up a bigger conversation, then this is the time to do it, so that this way we're not just stuck on the habitat. Kind of see what our options are for the Family Service Center, and then put all our options on the table and see what council thinks is the best.
Yeah. So we can have our habitat team stay on standby, and then we can go ahead and move forward with city staff's meeting.
Mayor,
Oh,
can
yes.
you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. I also want
Monica, it's a really bad connection.
on the presentation from thank Habitat for being a great partner with the city for several years. Can you hear me?
No, Councilmember, you were going in and out. Kind of sounded a little robotic.
Okay, go ahead. Oh,
There
got
you
it.
go. There you go.
Okay. I'll be joining you in council shortly, but I just wanted to comment on the presentation by Habitat and thank Habitat for being a partner to the city for many years. I love the idea of Habitat coming to the city of Baldwin Park. I'm just not convinced that this site is the site for your headquarters. And I've seen this corner of Baldwin Park through many stages. I used to go to the Boys and Girls Club that used to sit where the senior housing is. Before there was a row of houses that were acquired by the city, and the park was extended. And so it's an important little pocket for us, and we really want to be thoughtful about how we further develop it. I am very much in favor of activating the space, and I would love to see revenues generated, whether it's retail or property taxes, because it is needed in the city. But my concerns, I do share concerns with Mayor Pro Tem Damian in that the parking, that's always a challenge for that site. And I'd be curious to know, what plan is developed to better address the parking. In addition to that, I really do feel that the city should own its Family Service Center. We have the opportunity right now to do that, to make that available to our community for decades to come, and to foster a nonprofit incubator. And that's an exciting opportunity for the city that I don't want to give to a third party. And I also want the Family Service Center to be very accessible to the community that needs it. That may change over time, but I would like to see the Family Service Center have a first floor that is very accessible, that has parking, that doesn't deter people from using its services, and is actually very welcoming and inviting. So we can talk a little bit more about that on this next presentation. The other piece of this is with regard to the senior housing. If we displace those seniors, I would absolutely ask Habitat to transition them into any housing proposal that is being proposed. So I wouldn't want to, just kind of let them fend for themselves with the Section 8 housing voucher or anything like that. I would want a smooth transition. I would want a plan in place, because especially at their age, uncertainty, can definitely take a toll on their health, mental health, physical. So as it is, they're already probably very vulnerable. So those are my considerations. And I also look forward to the next presentation. Thank you.
Great, thank you for that. One more question I just thought about. So when we're talking about building at the Family Service Center, at the current Family Service Center, would one option be to build the first floor parking and then kind of like there's a lot, I've seen a couple of structures where there's parking on the bottom and then you build the foundation to house units on top. And I think that would be one option to potentially expand parking all the way to the back, and you'd have the units on top.
Now that I have a better understanding what some of the bigger concerns are, then I can go back and take a look to see how we can get this done, to incorporate. We wouldn't be the first person that had parking as an issue to having a new building, and what the best way to incorporate it would be. Having the city own the Family Service Center or a portion of it, I mean, theoretically, I think we could probably, it's possible to break the building into condos, and you would own portions and we would own portions. But these are the type of conversations that I would like to have as part of a bigger picture of if we're going in the right direction or not, just to make sure, because it will take some time for us to do this. And if the council feels that this is a poor location for all the reasons that have been mentioned, we're still going to be here. We're still going to be your partner. We're still going to be building houses. We're still going to be in your neighborhoods. Like I said, we just feel that we can give a lot more and provide a lot more stability and everything else that's been said. I guess, like I said before, we were looking more for some direction on what you guys want to do and how we can best help you accomplish that. So the points that you raised, we've heard loud and clear. And if you still want us to investigate, we're more than happy to come back with something to address the issues that you've spoken about.
Okay. All right. Well, then let's go with the staff presentation, and then we just have you on standby just in case we're looking to expand, continue the conversation.
Thank you all.
We're going to tag team on this presentation, myself, Sam, Ron, and Manny, but it's brief. It took all four of us to come up with this brief presentation. Very powerful, nonetheless. So, it's important to look at the point of departure for our perspective. And if we can go to the next slide. The point of departure here is what all of you, the council members and mayor, have alluded to already, that, the family service component, as far as the city is concerned, is an extremely important service that we provide as a city to its residents. So the obvious question that has now come up is not even a question now, is a conclusion that the current Family Service Center is just inadequate, and it's antiquated and not able to meet the needs of the community. But what we have here is sort of the existing functions and organizations that are housed in the Family Service Center as it currently exists. We talked about it being 5,000 square feet. It's just over 5,000 square feet, but it has no support infrastructure, no high-speed internet, no common functionality that many nonprofit organizations actually need, such as, sometimes a central payroll, many other things that a family service center should be able to provide. And so that's clearly a conclusion. The question you asked of us to do back in May, when we had given you a status update on where we were with the development of a new proposed family service center, was that we provide you with some alternatives of what we think could be best suitable sites that could house the newly developed family service center. And that's what we have. I will prelude that this is very very preliminary. This is more on the site selection level of discussion. We don't have renderings, and it's only in the purity of the family service centers by itself. We're not talking about whether it could be in coexistence with any other function or any other type of service. This is just in the pure sense of the family service center. So with that, if we can go to the next slide, and then Manny, if you can talk about this, and then Sam for the sites that we have in mind.
Yes, sir. Let's see here. Okay, the thinking out loud in terms of designing a new facility, we would need to visit a few other facilities. And I was thinking just off the top of my head and visiting a few other facilities that we are probably looking at approximately 12,000 to possibly 15,000 square feet. So as Enrique mentioned, we currently have approximately 5,000 square feet, and it does not meet the needs. We are probably looking at approximately 12 to 15, if not a little bit more, individual offices, because the intent of the facility would be a natural hub, a nonprofit hub, to house a variety of agencies. So we would traditionally not charge any of these agencies any fees, and in turn, they would provide free of charge or a small charge of service below fair market value to the residents of the community. And as the CEO mentioned, we would need a wide array of upgrades, audio-visual, and meeting and training rooms. And once again, I'd like to emphasize that we need many, many more individual type of offices. We currently have approximately 5 offices, and we opened up in 1997, and we quickly realized in 1997 that we needed to add, so we added 3 more offices, or actually 2 offices and 1 conference room, and we opened up in 2004, 2005, but still does not meet the current needs. And as we mentioned, in terms of services, we have a wide array of services that we collaborate with: consumer actions, vaccination services. We have annual health fairs. We work with all kinds of nonprofits. So once again, it is sincerely a nonprofit hub, and we staff does not specifically offer all of the services, but we definitely leverage our resources with a variety of nonprofits. I think at this point, I will turn it over to my next colleague.
Thank you, Manny. Next slide, please. So just judging by the conversation that we're having today, I think we're all in agreement that there is a need for a new family services center. I think Enrique and Manny both touched on the fact that the current Family Services Center, while it has been good to the community and provided a lot of services, has outgrown the services that are provided to the city. So we know that, and we're all in agreement that there is a need for a new expanded Family Services Center, but it will look very different depending on where we decide to build it. So back in May, the council gave us direction to come back to the council with some location considerations. So I'll go over a few. This is not a comprehensive list of locations by any measure. This is just a conversation to get the ball rolling, to open up other conversations and maybe consider other alternatives. So the first option, the recommended option actually, is to build the Family Services Center at the Lawrence parking lot. This will capitalize on existing synergy that exists now with the park and tie in with the community center, the senior center, and the Youth Activity Center. And it has access to public transportation and other services. The second option is to expand the current site location where it is now and relocate the building and bring it out prominently towards the front of the lot where it'll maintain the synergy it has right now with, again, the community center, the senior center, and the youth activity center. Another consideration could be possibly the City Hall campus. At the last meeting, we presented a proposed conceptual, at this stage, building that will expand on the City Hall building, providing another wing to flank the Zocalo project. In that building, we were proposing a city clerk's archiving building, but we don't have a designated use for it or any type of programming for it yet. But it will integrate with the proposed City Hall Annex building. It'll have access to the upcoming Zocalo Civic Center Plaza. There's connectivity to Metrolink, and so there's parking at the Baldwin Park Transit Center. So those are some of the benefits there. The last consideration is just to go out and seek locations, existing, and acquire property and or an existing building and retrofit that building. So as you can see, there's many considerations, and depending on which path we're directed to go, the Family Services Center might look very different. Next slide, please. So next steps is, as Manny mentioned earlier, is to get direction on a site selection or seek other sites. Also, Manny mentioned touring and looking at other facilities to get ideas from. There should be some community engagement meetings, and then we can prepare a conceptual design depending on what location we're directed to follow, and come back to the City Council with some design options, and then seek funding opportunities. And at this time, I'd like to just open it up for questions. There is alternatives that the council can consider and provide direction to staff. Thank you.
Great. So looking at, so when we're at the city hall site, I just did it again on Google Earth. Just try to check the distance between the empty parcel parking lot, and it's less than 500 feet. So it's around 360 feet of a walking distance. So based on that, and it being next to the train, we open up for potentially getting grants for public transit-based projects. Is that correct? Or how would that work?
Yes, if there is a public transportation nexus, if we have if we move our transportation counter or provide those kind of services, absolutely there may be some transportation funding that could be sought and applied.
Now, Sam, the transportation funding, would that also pertain to the construction or building of a new parking structure?
Yes.
Okay. Only because I'm looking at, and this is the reason why I wanted these two presentations, kind of one, so we can kind of get a better idea of okay, where are we going to go? Let's give direction of what we're going to do. And for me, the Habitat project has its pros. Obviously, it has its cons. With the Family Service Center, I would not like to see it moved out of the Morgan Park area, because that's kind of like our hub of our senior center, our community center, and our Family Service Center. I would like to keep it within the same vicinity. Looking at how Habitat has the structures there to where one building would be the restore and the headquarters. Then you have the courtyard or food court, and then you have the residential units. I still would not like to see residential units in that area, only because of the same concerns that I shared when the Olson project was there. Looking at the options, one of the things that, and I'm going to throw this option out there, it's open for discussion, is where the restore would be, build a family service center there, continue the same theme with the courtyard, and then where the proposed residential units would be, build a parking structure there. This way, we have the parking structure that's going to help and assist with the parking that we need. And then we have the family service center there, still within the hub of the Morgan Park area. Those are kind of my suggestions as to, where the family service center would be. I would not like to see it out of the Morgan Park area. But I'm open for ideas. I'm open for suggestions. So that this way we can decide, which route we want to go.
So, did you say? So you said, can you repeat where you would want the family service center?
So yes, I don't know if Mark, if maybe, or someone can bring up the habitat slide where they had the proposed. Let me see what page this is. I guess it would be page 7. So this area here, as you can see to the right, they're proposing the restore and the headquarters there. Make that build a family service center there. Continue the same theme as far as the courtyard, food court, and where they're proposing on the left the residential units, a parking structure there.
But you don't mean co-locating with Habitat, right, Mayor Pro Tem?
Whatever's going to be in the best interest of the city and the community. That's why, I'm proposing that we have an open discussion on this, suggestions. For me, the thing is, I don't want to go and sell a piece of land so that we have to lease back our family service center. I believe that the family service center should be 100% owned by the city. And not being leased back. So that's one of my concerns there. And that's the reason why I keep coming back to how is this deal going to be structured? Because the last thing I would like to see is for us to have to lease our family service center.
Yeah, so personally, I wouldn't want a parking structure in the core of the downtown. I mean, I think as we develop, we really have to push to kind of hide parking structures. I think it takes away from I think it just takes away from the experience to be walking through parking lots.
Yeah, but the unfortunate thing, Mayor, is that, realistically speaking, the people are not going to go park at the metro station to come to this area. Even we can encourage it as much as we want, but we see it time in, time out. We see it at the concerts. We see it when we have the downtown street market. People are just not going to park at the metro station to come all the way up north towards La Cosecha area. And that's my concern, that if parking is going to be an issue for the current businesses there, and if we start to attract different types of businesses where people are going to want to walk from there, they're not going to want to park at the metro station to walk all the way up north towards Clark. So the last thing we want is to revitalize something and people not want to come because there's no parking.
Mayor?
Yes, Councilwoman Avila.
And to add to Mayor Pro Tem, it's all going to depend how we make that parking structure look. We can make sure it goes along the same lines of the actual family service center to make it look nice and decorative. The only difference it'll be that it's going to be a parking structure, but we can make it look presentable like one of the actual retail stores or restaurants. I agree that the parking there is an issue. It's an issue now. That ugly parking lot that we have there gets so crowded. Not even, and I'm not even speaking during concerts in the park or street market. Sometimes you go back there. Via Mar alone packs that parking lot sometimes. And so to take away all that area from parking and then add additional restaurants would really make an impact on the whole community. And yes, we want to make sure that our community is walking, of course, but if you're coming from outside of the community, because now we're having new restaurants that are innovating and people want to come to Baldwin Park, they're going to have to drive here from out of the city. They will need somewhere to park. So ideally, to have the parking structure behind there, again, making it look nice. The Covina area, they have a parking lot right behind the businesses. And it's really nice because some of the businesses actually have the alleys that go towards the parking lot, and people can come in through the back door to their businesses. So it all depends on the layout that we make, the structure, the look that we give that parking lot. I think it would be ideal as long as it's cohesive and it just goes along with the building that we're putting there. But parking is an issue, and I think we need to address that as well.
Mayor,
Yes, Councilwoman Garcia.
I was trying to pull up the rendering that we were looking at. Who has control of that? Can you put that back up, Mike? Okay, thank you. So I was trying to follow Mayor Pro Tem's proposal, and these are my thoughts. I think that the Lawrence site should, whatever we propose for that site, the usage of that site should support our downtown revitalization efforts. And I would think activating the space either with retail and subterranean parking would be ideal, or subterranean, and in the past, that I've supported housing to activate this space and create, bodies in our downtown area, bring bodies to our downtown area, and create walkability in the downtown area. But I really do see Lawrence being a nice opportunity for us to support downtown and its revitalization. So when I look at the Family Service Center, which I'm really excited about, and I would love to see the city own Family Service Center, so I agree with Mayor Pro Tem. I think it really, the site that is optimal, that is ideal, would be where it's currently located, just bringing it forward more and showcasing it a lot more than, right now it's so set back, it's almost hidden, it's kind of like so private. But having a beautiful building that opens up to Morgan Park, that, has a connectivity to all the programs there at Morgan Park, that's what I envision. I can see parking on Lawrence. I wouldn't want to only see parking. But, if we look at what it has been historically, it's parking, and it supports our downtown businesses. So it's serving its purpose, and it's very underutilized. So, but the concept is there. Lawrence has been a parking lot that has served our downtown businesses. And I would like us to continue on that thought process, but really just improve on it. Bring more parking spaces, bring more retail, activate the space. For me, I was fine with activating it with housing and parking, but I just want to share what I see for this site, and keep our Family Service Center more or less where it's at. Those are my thoughts. And then, the Family Service Center where it currently sits, it does have a lot of parking. If the programs there are, selective about what time they offer their programs, there can be a lot of parking. It's very accessible. It lends itself for multiple levels of space. And I just think that we have a great opportunity right now, perhaps to use the funding, ARPA, or to create this place, this very special place for our community. I think that was all I was going to say. I think I support the idea of a new building versus renovating an older building, even though there are older buildings like the one across the street, that 3-story, kind of that Art Deco building. I love it. I would love to see the city acquire it and renovate it to, be part of our civic center. But the truth and the reality is that it just costs so much money to rehabilitate those older buildings. And so I think it would make most sense for us to just start from the ground up. So I favor keeping it where it's at, expanding on it, showcasing it, making it beautiful, making it very accessible to our community, and then keeping the Lawrence, keeping its usage in support of our downtown businesses. So those are my thoughts. Thank you.
Thank you. So, I'm 100%. We should own our family service center. We have a great relationship with Habitat, but councils change, and so do executive seats. So, in the long term, it's important that we make sure that we, plan for peaceful relationships in the long run. I think, the proposition of Habitat does revitalize that area. It brings in a promenade. It brings in a center courtyard. It brings in development and revenue, which I think we are in dire need of. I understand wanting to keep the family service center within the area. Like I said, we're building a civic center and plaza. So, the civic center is also a place where the community will come get those services, and it's right next to City Hall, which is also beneficial. Beyond that, we also have to keep in mind that we have a ton of development projects in the pipeline. So we're looking to rebuild our 3rd floor. We're looking to redo our city chambers. We're looking at, family service center. We're looking at our public works yard. We're looking at a lot of development. Inflation has really shown us, the adverse effect of it. We've seen it in the cost of Zocalo. So, to me, it is beneficial to, lock in funding and lock in development. I think that, this is a really good thing for the community. We're bringing in volunteer opportunities. We're bringing in revenue. We're bringing in funding. We're bringing in sales tax and property tax, which is also key. So I think that we can get all of it. I know that, but this is, we just have to reiterate that this is only the start of what the development is. Either we can kind of wait around and hope that somebody who shares our vision will want to come around. I know that, we've been very staunch about protecting our landscape, especially in the downtown, making sure that we don't get too densified. And I've been there. We've all spoken up against that. We've limited our density in the downtown. We've talked about not wanting to use our limited space for housing. But, something very important to keep in mind is that if any other development project that's not the Family Service Center comes into proposed for Lawrence, they will have to build housing. We have one of the benefits here is that Habitat is willing to work with us on how much or how little housing we want in that area. And I think $200,000 condos, who doesn't want a $200,000 condo? So I think that we're able to tackle a lot of things if we work in partnership. If we can figure out a deal, I have no problem making sure that the funds from this transaction are secured for a new family service center.
So do you have direction or not really? We're all over the place.
There's a lot to
Yeah.
think about.
Yeah.
Yeah, we'll have to listen to the tape and get together with the E team and
Maybe have another, let's have a follow-up conversation.
I
Just
agree.
because
I
this was
think there's too much, and it's a big decision to make, and I agree we should have another meeting and have more ideas on what we like. We all have different ideas, and I think they're all great, but compile our ideas. But I think at least I need more time, and it sounds like you do too.
Yeah, would you like us to do one more detailed iteration with Habitat on how that deal could be structured? Because I think there's some, still some sort of, it may be inevitable that it does involve a land transaction. I think we probably know that even now, but we can look at that, or if we only stay just on the side of it being on further developing the ideas for the Family Services Center on the city side and city only. But we can do either or both, however you
I
like
think
us to.
as a city, we've never really had an in-depth conversation of details. This is actually the first time we gave direction the first time, but this is the first time we're giving more ideas of what we would like to see. And so I think we would need to have more time to, put our thoughts together and bring everybody's ideas to see what works best as a city.
Definitely.
Would the city council like to see some maybe renderings or mock-ups of alternatives? At the January meeting, there was funding approved for conceptual designs.
Well, how much funding are we talking about? Because how many options are we really going to explore? Like, I think
Right.
if we could narrow it down
Right.
and then come up with some renderings, that might be a better process.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think that before we go spend money on conceptual designs,
Right.
let's kind of figure out which direction we're gonna go. Maybe, hey, these mock-ups that you did for the Family Service Center work fine just for a visual idea of what we're dealing with. But I think that whatever options you bring forward, if this includes the habitat conversation, take into consideration, number one, we want to make sure that the Family Service Center is city owned, and it stays within the same vicinity. Number two, we definitely need to adjust parking. That it has to be part of the plan. Retail, food courts, all of that would be awesome as well. So just kind of tie in the old Family Service Center location, the Lawrence parking lot area, and see what we can come up with, and see what kind of deals we can structure with Habitat if need be.
What does underground parking lot look like? I mean, LA is all underground. I mean, how costly could that be? Those kind of ideas. Because if we have underground parking and continue with the retail, like Council Member Garcia said, because she would like to see retail instead of a parking lot, that would take away the look of the parking lot, but we still have parking. So look into that maybe. Just different things to look at.
Yeah, and explore the idea of the expansion of the campus environment. The campus that has at its core the existing Morgan Park and Community Senior Center. That's the core of the campus. How do we enhance that sort of feeling of a all-inclusive campus? Folks go to Morgan Park for a lot of different reasons, and that's a very important asset that we currently have and should capitalize on it. So I think we can explore that. I mean, I think there's room for there to be a way of see how Habitat can be part of it. If you would like us to explore that
I
as
think
well.
there's more to explore, definitely.
Okay.
Well, if I can add, I think that over the years we have tried to bring in more retail establishments in our downtown area versus housing. Versus office or like the medical offices, because again, it's about the synergies. It's about the retail establishments playing off of each other. My concern, and like I said, I have appreciated the partnership with Habitat very much. You've been doing excellent work in our city, and I think that will continue whether or not you're headquartered in our city. But even if we did subterranean or underground parking and had the offices of Habitat, the headquarters, I think that parking would really serve the Habitat headquarters. And, with 40 employees and then people coming to the store, if that's what's being proposed, that parking could probably be taken up by the Habitat headquarters. So are we really building in additional parking to support the downtown revitalization, the downtown retail establishments? Probably not. That's something for us to consider too, is if we ask Habitat, subterranean parking is not cheap, as we know. And if that's something that we consider along with a proposal from Habitat, the truth is they're just creating their own parking. So again, for me, Lawrence has always represented an opportunity to support the revitalization of downtown. And I want to keep on that path. And I'm not sure that Habitat's headquarters is part of that path for me, for my vision. I love the idea of having a food court. Of course, that activates a space as long as there's parking, and again, supporting our downtown businesses. But I'm not sure that, bringing an office space and then a lot of vehicles, and not really sure where we're going to park them, or if there is subterranean, that it's all for Habitat. I'm not really sure how that, supports the bigger plan for that corner of Baldwin Park.
I wasn't meaning parking for Habitat, it was for the retail.
Yeah, and that's it, exactly. But do you see what I'm saying about, like, if Habitat goes the extra distance to create subterranean parking, which is pretty expensive, so I don't even know if you would consider that. But
The next iteration we will do is, we'll do space distribution options, because the Lawrence parking lot is, I want to say 30,000 square feet by the parcel that the city owns. If we dedicate the street, it'll go up to 40,000 square feet. So we gain 10,000 additional square feet. If we go with a 12,000 square feet to 15,000 square feet for the Family Services Center, and we go 2 stories, 3 stories, I think we can provide the parking that you have in mind to, support all the rest of the downtown, without necessarily going underground. It's only when, we're trying to co-locate with Habitat that
that's my point.
we would have to go underground.
And
So
then-
what do you guys think of the option? I mean, because it seems like everybody's aware that we need parking. And obviously underground parking is only going to be, there's only going to be so many parking spaces. The best thing to do is kind of do a mini parking structure, kind of like the one at City Hall. Because that would solve a lot of the issues, because we can do 2 floors and maybe expand on it in the future, or if we can do 3 or 4 all at once, that would be great. But obviously maybe incorporate a food court around the parking structure where it doesn't look like just a parking structure there. And then use the other site for the Family Service Center. Then we would need to realize or find out what are we going to do with the old Family Service Center. But what do you guys think of that idea?
Well, Mayor Pro Tem, would you consider a parking structure at Lawrence and then the Family Service Center where it currently sits, but expanded?
I would. I would just like to see some kind of, like you said, synergy around that parking structure there, because if we do the whole Lawrence side as a parking structure, yeah, it'll be a massive parking structure, but that's all that it's going to be, a parking structure. If maybe we can incorporate some other type of, either retail or food court or courtyard or something to that parking structure area, I think that would be great. The old Family Service Center, yes, we would definitely need to revitalize it. How expensive it may be to bring it up to par, I don't know. If it would be cheaper to just build from scratch. But obviously, I would love to see some type of parking structure in the Lawrence site, because that's going to help for the Morgan Park and it's going to help for the downtown. Now, the bigger question is, do we add the Family Service Center there next to the parking structure, or do we redo the Family Service Center at the old Family Service Center build a parking structure there, and then what do we do next to that parking structure?
Well, if I can chime in on that, I think that demolishing the existing family service center, starting from scratch, bringing it up closer to Morgan Park, expanding on the footprint, going multiple levels would be one option. And then the parking structure would best be placed at Lawrence Avenue to support the downtown businesses because it's very accessible. And there's also an alley which would be a public easement, and we can look at that as being a space for a food court possibly.
Yeah, if we can explore those options, I like that idea. I want, we desperately need a parking structure in that area. So I do like that option.
I think the parking would definitely support the businesses in downtown, and I think that's one of the reasons why our downtown has kind of been strangled a little bit is because of the accessibility.
Yeah, I agree. I agree because, by doing this, if we go with the first, the options that we had, we're going to do a disservice to those businesses that are currently there because we're going to take away parking that they already, fight for now. So if we can bring back some options with that, I'm in support of that.
I support that as well.
Mayor?
I support that idea.
And if you can bring back, I like the idea of having the family service center and a parking structure on Lawrence, and we would still be providing parking for our businesses there, and it would still connect to the parking and continue the open space look with the restaurants.
So maybe those two different options.
Yeah, I agree. I think those two options would be good to bring back.
And then, Councilmember Avila, what about the Family Service Center site?
I'm thinking personally in that Lawrence parking lot with a parking structure on the side, the way it would be the family service center with a restaurant area and the parking lot. I think that lot's big enough to provide that. But let's look at all the options that we're offering. So to see, once we get a visual and give us an idea how many parking spaces we would be able to fit in each site that we're asking, how big the family service center would look on one end from the other end, and all those ideas, I think we can get a better idea what would work best for our community. And also, I would like input from Manny and his staff to see what ties in better or what section of the park. I really would like their honest opinion without worrying about what we're thinking, just what they think would work better for our community, since they're the ones that are actually working with the community and providing those services.
Another thing that I just thought about as well is when you guys work on on those two options, if we were to go with the family service center and the parking structure at the Lawrence site, maybe think about converting the old family service center into senior housing. Because I know that the senior housing that we currently have there is in desperate need of upgrades. So I mean that's also an idea, just so that we can create more housing in that area, since that area seems to be a little bit more residential because you have the current senior housing there, then you have the park shadows in the back. So just kind of keep that as a residential. Bring back both options. The one Councilmember Garcia had mentioned and the one Councilmember Avila, and then see what we decide to go with from there.
And piggybacking on Councilmember Avila's comments about asking Manny for your input as to what would be an optimal site, or getting your input, I would also ask Ron for your input for the downtown uses and the synergies in our downtown area. So, if you two can chime in, that would be great.
Yeah, everybody chiming in, I think would be great.
Great. So I think staff has direction. I will just state for the record, I don't agree with using that site for parking. I think it's a service to the community. We really need a downtown that is going to be vibrant and bring in revenue. We don't have money, we don't have staff. bringing in a whole other structure to take care of is going to be a potential burden. So, we've talked about, even before my time, city has been talking about a walkable city for a decade. It's part of the downtown specific plan. I don't think that this is addressing that vision. But staff, you do have direction, and we will go from there. So I believe that is it. I don't think we have any closed session items, so we'll go ahead and adjourn the meeting, and we will see everybody at 7.
That makes sense. Yeah. Yeah. So that's what he was telling me because he's doing some